The galaxy had always looked at humans with a mixture of pity and amusement. For 80 years, Earth and its 7 colony worlds had been part of the Galactic Accord. And for 80 years, humanity had been considered the weakest species among the 12 spacefaring civilizations. Admiral Tae Woo-jin stood on the bridge of the Soul's Dawn. Watching the stars through the viewport, his face showed nothing. It never did. Behind him, officers moved quietly at their stations, monitoring the peaceful borders of human space. "Admiral," said Captain Han Sumi, approaching with a tablet in her hand. "The Valkyrie have moved 3 more battle groups to our border. That makes 15 in total." Tae nodded slowly. "I saw the report. Sir, with respect, shouldn't we be doing something? Our defense fleet is barely a tenth of their size. If they attack, they won't attack today," Tae said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "They're waiting for their friends to arrive." Sumi frowned. She was young, only 32. But she had risen fast through the ranks because she was smart and she asked questions others were afraid to ask. "You mean the coalition?" "The coalition of 5, Tae confirmed. "The Valkyrie, the Mordeth, the Krill Syndicate, the Vorn Empire, and the Tessari Collective. 5 species who have decided that human space is too rich and humans are too weak. We're just going to wait for them to gather their forces." Tae turned to look at her. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Something that made Sumi step back without knowing why. Then it was gone, and he was just a tired old admiral again, as he said. "We wait." Far away, hidden in the shadow of Jupiter, Dr. Unicong worked in a laboratory that did not officially exist. Project Ember had been her life's work for 20 years. Only a handful of people in all of human space knew about it. Even fewer understood what it truly was. She stood before a holographic display showing the human nervous system. Red lines traced through it like rivers of fire, connecting every nerve, every synapse, every corner of the brain. "The latest readings are stable," said her assistant, a young man named Jae Sung Park. "All 8 billion subjects showed dormant markers." 8 billion weapons, Yuna murmured. "Sleeping inside 8 billion people." "Doctor, do you really think it will work?" "The theory is sound, but we've never actually tested it at full scale." Yuna smiled, but there was no joy in it. "Let's hope we never have to find out." On the other side of the galaxy, Overlord Mivran of the Valkyrie Dominion addressed his war council. He was massive, standing 3 meters tall, his scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lights of his flagship. Around him, representatives of the 4 other coalition species listened with eager anticipation. "The humans have 63 warships," Mivran said, his voice rumbling like thunder. "We have 12,000. Their ground forces number 2 million. Ours number 900 million. Their technology is primitive. Their warriors are soft. They have spent 80 years talking about peace while we have spent 80 years preparing for war." A Mordeth commander raised one of his forearms. "What about their allies in the Accord? The Valeth? The Nomari?" Mivran laughed, and the sound echoed through the chamber. "The Accord is built on trade agreements and diplomatic handshakes. No one will die for the humans. No one will sacrifice their sons and daughters for a species that cannot even defend itself. When we attack, the galaxy will watch. They will shake their heads, perhaps make speeches condemning our actions. And then they will line up to trade with us for the resources we take." The council laughed with him. It was so obvious, so simple. The humans were prey, and the coalition was the predator. Nature had made this decision long before any of them were born. On Earth, Ambassador Lee Dae-ho stood before the Galactic Council for the last time. He was an old man, his hair white, his back bent by decades of service. But his eyes were sharp, and his voice did not waver. "I am here to deliver a warning," he said. "The coalition of 5 is preparing to invade human space. We have tried diplomacy. We have offered compromises. We have done everything in our power to avoid conflict. But it is clear now that war is coming." The council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. Most looked bored. A few looked sympathetic. None looked concerned. Ambassador Lee, said the Valkyrie representative, not even trying to hide his smile. "Are you asking the Council to protect you? Do you want us to fight your battles for you?" "No," Deho said quietly. "I am asking you to stop your allies from making a terrible mistake." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Valkyrie representative shook his head. "What will you do, old man? Send your cargo ships against our battle fleets? Throw your diplomats at our soldiers?" Deho looked at him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, colder, harder. "I am asking you once. I will not ask again. Call off your attack. Leave human space in peace. If you do not, you will face consequences beyond your imagination." The laughter grew louder. Even species who had no stake in the conflict joined in. The idea of humans threatening anyone was simply too funny. Deho turned and walked out of the chamber. He did not look back. 3 days later, Overlord Mivron broadcast his declaration of war across every communication channel in the galaxy. His face filled screens on 1 billion worlds as he announced that the Coalition would liberate human space from its weak and incompetent government. On Earth, a mother was feeding her baby when she felt it. A strange pulse in her mind, like a heartbeat that wasn't her own. On Mars, a construction worker dropped his tools and looked up at the sky, his eyes wide. On the colony world of Horizon, Sergeant Borakim stopped in the middle of giving orders to her squad. Something was waking up inside her. Something old. Something powerful. On the bridge of the Soul's Dawn, Captain Hansumi grabbed the edge of her console as a wave of dizziness passed through her. When she looked up, she saw Admiral Tae-Woo-jin smiling. It was the first time she had ever seen him smile. "Admiral," she whispered, "what's happening to me? What's happening to all of us?" Tae turned to face her, and now she could see it clearly. That thing in his eyes. That terrible patient knowledge he had been hiding all along. "They declared war," he said softly. "And now, Captain, humanity has finally woken up." Across 8 worlds and 7 colony ships, 8 billion humans felt the same pulse. The same awakening. The same ancient fire stirring in their blood. The galaxy had been certain of victory. The galaxy was about to learn how wrong it had been. The Coalition attacked at dawn on a Tuesday. Not that dawn meant anything in space, but the humans would remember it as the day everything changed. 12,000. Warships jumped into human space from 5 different directions. They hit all 8 worlds at the same time. The plan was simple. Overwhelming force, total destruction. Complete victory within 72 hours for the first 6 hours. Everything went according to plan. Sergeant Borakim was on the surface of Horizon when the sky turned to fire. She watched Coalition dropships falling like metal rain, each one carrying hundreds of enemy soldiers. Her squad of 40 men and women looked at her with fear in their eyes. "What do we do, Sergeant?" asked a young private. Bora should have been afraid. She had 2 children back in the settlement, a daughter of 7 and a son of 4. She should have been thinking about them, worrying about their safety. Feeling the cold grip of terror instead, she felt something else. A warmth spreading through her mind. Voices that were not voices. Knowledge that was not her own. "We fall back to position 7, she said, and the words came easily, naturally, as if she had known the answer before the question was asked. "Enemy forces will land in Sector 12 in approximately 4 minutes. We will hit them from the west while they're still organizing."
Ah.
Her squad stared at her. "Sergeant, how do you know where they'll land?" Bora smiled. "I don't know how I know, but I know. In orbit above Earth, the human defense fleet was dying. 63 ships against 2,000. The math was simple and cruel. Admiral Tae-Woo-jin stood on the bridge of the Soul's Dawn, watching his ships burn. "Admiral, we've lost the Busan and the Incheon," reported Captain Hansumi. "The Daegu is requesting permission to ram the enemy flagship," denied Tae said. "Tell all ships to fall back to Earth's shadow. Defensive Formation 7. "Sir, that formation won't hold for more than an hour. It doesn't need to." Tae checked the time on his console. "It only needs to hold for 12 more minutes." On the civilian transport ship Starlight, navigator Hannah Cho was trying to save 300 passengers. The ship was damaged, drifting, caught between two coalition destroyers that were moving in for the kill. Engine room. "I need power," she called into the communication system. "We're trying," came the answer. "The main reactor is offline. We need at least 20 minutes. "We don't have 20 minutes. Hannah closed her eyes. She was going to die. All these people were going to die. There was nothing she could do. Then she felt it. The pulse. The connection. Suddenly she knew things she had never learned. She understood the ship in a way that shouldn't be possible. Every system, every wire, every backup protocol. Her hands moved across the console without her telling them to. Engine room. Listen carefully. Reroute auxiliary power through junction 7 alpha. Bypass the main conduit using the emergency feeds from life support section 3. You'll have 40 seconds of thrust." Silence. Then, navigator. That's impossible. The math doesn't work." "The math works. Do it now." They did it. 40 seconds later, the Starlight shot forward, slipping between the two destroyers before they could react. 300 people lived because a navigator suddenly knew things she had never been taught in her laboratory beneath Jupiter. Dr. Unicong watched the data streaming across her screens. Every human in the galaxy was connected now. Not sharing thoughts exactly, but sharing awareness. Sharing instincts. Sharing the accumulated survival knowledge of a species that had fought its way up from the mud of a small blue planet. "Project Ember is fully active," she whispered to her assistant Jae-Soon. It actually worked. Soon was shaking. Not from fear, but from the overwhelming sensation of 8 billion minds brushing against his own. "Doctor, I can feel them. All of them. I can feel a soldier fighting on Horizon. A pilot in orbit over Mars. A child hiding in a shelter on Earth. It's beautiful. It's dangerous," Eunice said. "The connection is stable now, but if it grows stronger, if we push it further, ... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. In space above Earth, the 12 minutes passed. The Coalition fleet had surrounded the planet. Their commanders were already celebrating, planning the occupation, dividing up the spoils. The human defense fleet was broken, hiding in Earth's shadow like frightened animals. Then the sensors went crazy. "What is that?" screamed a Velkari officer. "Where did those ships come from?" Behind Jupiter, a fleet emerged. Not 63 ships, not 100. 500 warships, each one larger and more advanced than anything the humans had ever shown the galaxy. They had been built in secret, hidden for decades. Waiting for this moment, Admiral Tae-Woo-jin smiled as the first fleet announced its arrival. "Now," he said quietly, "the real war begins." Vice Admiral Yoon Bai-shin commanded the first fleet. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and cold eyes. She had spent her entire career preparing for a battle everyone told her would never come. "All ships," she broadcast, "connect to the Ember Network. Let our brothers and sisters guide your hands. Let our ancestors steady your aim. We fight as one." The human fleet moved as a single organism. 500 ships, working in perfect harmony without any communication between them. They knew what their allies were thinking. They could feel the flow of battle like a river current. The Coalition had numbers. The humans had unity. Within 3 hours, the fleet above Earth was destroyed. Not defeated, destroyed. 2,000 warships became floating debris on Horizon. Sergeant Bora Kim led her squad against an enemy force of 5,000. They moved through the forest like ghosts, always knowing where the enemy would be before they arrived, always striking from the unexpected angle. By morning, the 5,000 were dead or captured. Bora had lost 3 soldiers. Across the galaxy, the other species watched in stunned silence. The humans were not supposed to fight back. They were supposed to die quietly, like all weak species did. Instead, they were winning. Overlord Mivrin received the reports on his flagship, far from the front lines. He read them 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. "How is this possible?" he demanded. They were cattle. They were prey. How are they doing this? No one had an answer. In his command center, Admiral Tae-Woo-jin, finally allowed himself a moment of rest. The first wave was broken. Earth was safe. But the war was just beginning. He opened a communication channel to the galaxy. His face appeared on screens across 100 worlds. "You were warned," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You believed we were weak because we chose peace. You thought our kindness was cowardice. You thought our patience was fear. You were wrong. Peace was our gift to you. You rejected it. Now you will see what humanity truly is. And you will wish you had never learned." He closed the channel. In her shelter on Earth, a 7-year-old girl named Sujian felt her mother's mind touch her own. Felt the warmth of a billion strangers who were not strangers at all, and smiled. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. 2 weeks after the war began, the galaxy understood something it had never considered before. Humanity had been lying, not for years, for decades. Every trade negotiation, every diplomatic meeting, every moment of apparent weakness had been a performance. And now the performance was over. Vice Admiral Yunbai Shin stood on the bridge of the Guanghua, the largest warship humanity had ever built. Around her, 20 officers worked in complete silence. They didn't need to speak. Through the Ember connection, they shared every thought, every strategy, every piece of information instantly. "The Mordith fleet is retreating from the Mars sector," said her tactical officer, though the words were almost unnecessary. Yunbai already knew. She could feel it. "Let them run," she said. "Our primary target is the Velkari supply line at the Orion checkpoint. Without supplies, their invasion force on Horizon will starve within 3 weeks." The fleet moved. 300 ships changed course in perfect synchronization, like a flock of birds turning as one. No orders were given. No communications were sent. Every captain simply knew what to do. On the ground, Corporal Minsu Wang was experiencing his first real battle. He was 19 years old, fresh out of training. And until 2 weeks ago, he had never fired a weapon at another living being. Now he moved through the ruins of a Horizon city, hunting coalition soldiers with the efficiency of a machine and the instincts of a wolf. "Contact left," he whispered, though he didn't need to. His squad already knew. They could feel the enemy's position through the Ember network, sensing the fear and confusion of the alien soldiers. "I've got them," said Private Jihai, appearing from behind a collapsed wall. Her rifle spoke twice, and 2 Velkari soldiers fell. Minsu paused for a moment, overwhelmed by the sensation. He could feel Jihai's satisfaction at the successful shots. He could feel Sergeant Bora Kim 3 kilometers away, leading another squad through the Eastern District. He could feel a pilot in orbit, locking weapons on an enemy cruiser. "Is this what it feels like to be part of something bigger?" he asked. "This is what it feels like to be human," Jihai answered. "We just never knew it before." The galaxy was watching. Every species with eyes to see and ears to hear was monitoring the human war. What they saw terrified them. Human ships didn't communicate. They didn't need to. Human soldiers moved in patterns that seemed random until you realized they were perfectly coordinated. Every action supporting every other action. Every sacrifice meaningful. Every death avenged within seconds. The coalition of 5 began to crack. First, the Tassari Collective announced their withdrawal from the Alliance. Their ambassador appeared before the Galactic Council with trembling hands. "We joined this coalition because we were promised easy victory," he said. "We were told the humans would fall in days. It has been 2 weeks. We have lost 400 ships and 300,000 soldiers. This is not a war. This is a slaughter. We withdraw." The Krill Syndicate followed 3 days later, then the Vorn Empire. Soon, only the Velkari and the Mordeth remained. Bound together by pride and desperation, Overlord Mivrin raged in his command chamber. He broke furniture. He executed 3 of his advisors for bringing bad news. But nothing changed the reality of the situation. How? He screamed at his generals. How are they doing this? They had no fleet. They had no army. They were traitors and poets and diplomats. A young intelligence officer stepped forward, hands shaking. Overlord, we have analyzed their communication patterns. They have none. What do you mean none? Their ships do not communicate with each other. Their soldiers do not use radios or signals. Yet they act in perfect coordination. Our analysts believe they have some form of mental connection. Some way of sharing thoughts across distances. Heck! Mivron stared at him. That's impossible. Yes, Overlord. It should be. But it is the only explanation. On Earth, Ambassador Lee Daeho appeared before the Galactic Council once more. This time, no one was laughing. The representatives of 100 species watched him with fear in their eyes. I come to deliver a message from humanity, he said. His voice was different now, stronger, colder. 3 weeks ago, I stood in this chamber and asked for peace. I was mocked. I was dismissed. I was told that my species was weak and worthless. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Now I return, and I see fear in your eyes. Good. You should be afraid, but not of our weapons, not of our fleet. You should be afraid because you have seen what we truly are, and you are wondering what else we have hidden. What other secrets we have kept? The chamber was silent. No one dared to speak. The answer, Daeho continued, is that you will never know. Humanity has been watching this galaxy for 80 years. We have seen your wars, your cruelty, your greed. We chose peace not because we were weak, but because we were strong enough to make that choice. We hoped you would learn. You did not. He turned and walked toward the exit, then stopped. This war will end soon. The Valkyrie will fall. And when it is over, humanity will remember. We will remember who attacked us. We will remember who stood by and watched, and we will remember who laughed when we asked for peace. He left without another word. In her laboratory, Dr. Unicong was not celebrating. She was terrified. The connection is growing stronger, she told Admiral Tae Woo-jin through a secure channel. When we designed Ember, we built in safeguards. Limits. Those limits are starting to fail. What does that mean? Tae asked. It means the connection is evolving. People aren't just sharing awareness anymore. They're starting to share emotions, thoughts, memories. If this continues. She hesitated. If this continues, we won't have 8 billion individuals connected together. We'll have one mind with 8 billion bodies. Tae was silent for a long moment. How long do we have? Weeks, maybe days. The more we fight, the faster it grows. Every battle, every death, every moment of fear and triumph pushes the connection deeper. Can we stop it? I don't know, maybe. If we end the war quickly, if we stop fighting. Tae looked at the tactical display showing the positions of the remaining coalition forces. They were weakened, but not broken. The Valkyrie still had thousands of ships. The Mordeth still held 3 human colony worlds. We can't stop now, he said quietly. If we stop, they'll regroup. They'll attack again. And next time, they'll know what they're facing. Then we might win the war, Yuna said, and lose ourselves in the process. Tae closed his eyes. He could feel the Ember connection humming in his mind. He could feel his crew, his fleet, his entire species moving together like one great organism. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. Then we need to end this war, he said, before we have to make that choice. He opened a channel to Vice Admiral Yoon Bai Shin. Admiral Shin, begin the final offensive. We're going after Mivron directly. Understood, sir. What are the rules of engagement? Tae thought about it, about the galaxy, about the future, about what kind of species humanity wanted to be. Minimum casualties, he said. Disable their ships. Don't destroy them. Take prisoners when possible. We need to win, but we need to win as humans. Not as monsters. There was a pause. Then Yoonbi's voice came back, tinged with something like respect. Admiral, we'll bring them down, and we'll do it right. The final battle was about to begin. Private Nario woke up screaming. She was in a field hospital on a horizon, surrounded by wounded soldiers and overworked medics. But the screaming wasn't from pain. Her body was fine. It was her mind that was breaking. I can hear them, she gasped, grabbing a nurse's arm. All of them. I can hear everyone. The nurse, a kind woman named Haiwan, tried to calm her down. It's okay. It's the Ember connection. Everyone feels it. No, you don't understand. Nura's eyes were wild. I can't tell where I end and they begin. I had a dream last night, but it wasn't my dream. It was a pilot's dream. She was flying over Jupiter, and she was scared, and when I woke up, I didn't know if I was me or her. This was the truth that Dr. Unicong had feared. The Ember connection was growing stronger every day. What had started as shared awareness was becoming shared identity. Individuals were beginning to blur together. On the Guanghua, Vice Admiral Yun Baixin felt it too. When she gave orders, she sometimes forgot whether she had spoken them aloud or simply thought them. When her officers responded, she couldn't always tell if they were using words or pure intention. Admiral said, her navigation officer, "We're approaching the Velkari defensive line." Yun Bai nodded. She could feel the enemy now. Distant sparks of consciousness that were not part of the human network. Cold, frightened, confused. For a moment, she almost felt sorry for them. All ships prepare for engagement. Remember your orders? Disable, don't destroy, we take prisoners. Across the fleet, hundreds of thousands of human minds acknowledged the order, not with words. Gout, with a simple pulse of understanding, in his command ship, Overlord Mivrin watched the human fleet approach. He had gathered everything he had left. 2,000 warships, crewed by soldiers who knew they were fighting for their lives. They're not slowing down, said his tactical officer. They don't need to slow down, Mivrin replied. They know exactly what they're doing. They always know he had made a decision. A terrible decision. But he saw no other way. Is the strike force ready? Yes, Overlord. 500 of our fastest ships, loaded with antimatter warheads. They're hidden behind the third moon, waiting for your signal. Mivron closed his eyes. When the battle begins, they will break through the human lines and head directly for Earth. If we can't win this war, we can at least make the humans pay, destroy their homeworld, break their connection. Overlord, our scientists say that might not work. The connection might not be tied to Earth at all, and at least they will suffer as we have suffered. Give the order when the battle starts. The two fleets met in the space between stars. It was the largest battle in the history of the galaxy. 2,000 Velkari warships against 400 human vessels. By any normal measure, the Velkari should have won. They had numbers, they had firepower, they had desperation, but the humans had Ember. Human ships moved through the Velkari formation like water through rocks. They knew where every enemy would be before they arrived. They knew where every shot would land before it was fired. They worked together with a precision that should have been impossible. Target their engines, UNB commanded. Disable their weapon systems. Do not aim for their reactors. It was a harder way to fight. Destroying a ship was easy. Carefully dismantling it while its crew tried to kill you was almost impossibly difficult. But the human fleet did it anyway. Ship after ship, they tore apart the Velkari weapons and engines, while leaving the crew compartments intact. On the ground, Sergeant Borakim led her forces through the last Velkari stronghold on horizon. She could feel her soldiers around her, their thoughts brushing against her own. She could feel Minsu and Jihai fighting 3 blocks away. Could feel a medic named Suhian saving a wounded enemy soldier because it was the right thing to do. "Sergeant," said one of her soldiers, "we have them surrounded. Should we move in?" Bora reached out with her mind, feeling the enemy soldiers in the building ahead. They were terrified. They knew they were going to die. "No," she said. "Open a channel. Tell them they can surrender. We won't harm prisoners." "Sergeant, they killed. I know what they killed." Bora's voice was hard. "I know what they did. But we're not fighting to become like them. We're fighting to stay who we are. Give them a chance to surrender." The soldiers surrendered. 28 Velkari soldiers walked out of that building with their hands raised, expecting to be executed. Instead, they were given water and medical care in space. The battle was reaching its climax when the sensors detected the Velkari strike force. Admiral shouted, a tactical officer, 500 ships breaking through our lines. They're heading for Earth, maximum speed. Yunbai felt the information ripple through the Ember network. Every human in the fleet knew instantly. Every human felt the same cold fear. "Can we stop them?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Not all of them. "If we break formation to chase them, the main fleet will overwhelm us. If we stay here, at least 100 will get through to Earth. 100 ships with antimatter warheads. Enough to destroy cities, maybe countries, maybe continents." Captain Hansumi was on the Soul's Dawn, far from the main battle. She had been guarding the supply lines, considered too young and inexperienced for the front. But now she felt the crisis through the Ember network, and she felt something else. A plan. Not her plan. Everyone's plan, rising up from 8 billion minds working together. "Admiral Tay," she said over the command channel, "I have an idea." "I'm listening, Captain." "We can't stop those ships with weapons, but we can stop them with ourselves. If we put our ships in their path, physical barriers, they'll have to slow down, dodge around us. And that will give our fast attack wings time to catch up." "You're talking about using our ships as shields?" "The casualty rate would be—" "I know what it would be." Sumi's voice was calm. She could feel billions of minds supporting her, lending her their strength. "But I'm not asking anyone to die. I'm asking them to risk dying so that Earth can live." "There's a difference." Tay was silent for a moment. "Then all ships in the intercept zone," you heard the captain. "This is voluntary only. No one is ordered to before he could finish." 300 ships had already changed course. Cargo vessels, medical frigates, mining ships, civilian transports. Anything that could move was placing itself in the path of the Velkari strike force. The Velkari tried to push through. They destroyed 17 human ships, killed 8,000 people. But they couldn't get past. Every time they found a gap, another human ship moved to block it. And behind them, the fast attack wings were closing in. On Earth, Dr. Unicong felt every death. The Ember connection had grown so strong that she couldn't block it out anymore. 17 ships, 8,000 voices, suddenly silent. But she felt something else too. She felt the people on those ships in their final moments. She felt their fear, their determination, their love for the people they were protecting. She felt the billions of humans on Earth feeling it with her. They weren't dying alone. No human would ever die alone again. The strike force was destroyed. Not one Valkyrie ship reached Ia. RTH, in the aftermath, as the battle wound down and the surviving Valkyrie ships began surrendering, Admiral Tae Woojin sat in his command chair and wept. He wept for the dead. He wept for the living. He wept because he could feel every human in the galaxy weeping with him, sharing his grief, carrying it together. "We won," said Captain Sumi softly. "Yes," Tae said. "But at what cost? And how much more will we have to pay before this is truly over?" Through the Ember connection, Private Nario heard his words. She was still in the hospital on Horizon, still struggling to hold on to herself. But she heard the Admiral's grief, and she understood. They had won. But they were changing, becoming something new. Something that might not be human anymore. And the war wasn't over yet. The Battle of Seoul took place 3 days after the destruction of the Velkari strike force. It would be the last battle of the war. Overlord Mivrin had gathered everything he had left. 800 warships manned by crews who knew they were going to die. He led them himself, standing on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue dot of Earth grow larger in his viewport. "They will remember us," he told his officers. "Even if we fall, they will remember that the Valkyrie did not surrender. We did not crawl. We fought to the end. The human fleet was waiting for them." 300 warships, plus the hundreds of civilian vessels that had defended Earth before. They formed a wall between Mivrin and the planet he wanted to destroy. Admiral Tae Woojin stood on the bridge of the Soul's Dawn, feeling the Ember connection stronger than ever. He could feel every human in the fleet. He could feel the people on Earth below, watching the sky with hope and fear. He could feel Dr. Unicong in her laboratory, desperately working on a way to save them from their own transformation. "All ships," he broadcast. "This is Admiral Tae. We end this today. But we ended on our terms. Disable their weapons. Target their engines. Do not destroy unless you have no other choice. We are not murderers. We are not conquerors. We are humans. And we will act like humans, even in the darkest moments. The battle began. It was not a fight. It was a dance. Human ships moved through the Valkyrie formation with impossible grace, cutting weapons off hulls, destroying engine nacelles, leaving crews alive but helpless. The Valkyrie fired back desperately, but they couldn't hit targets that knew where every shot would land before it was fired. Vice Admiral Yunbai Xin led the assault on Mivran's flagship. Her ship, the Guanghua, moved through a storm of enemy fire without taking a single hit. She could feel the enemy captain's panic as his weapons went offline one by one. "Prepare boarding teams," she ordered. "We're taking their overlord alive. Admiral, he'll probably kill himself before we reach him." "No." Yunbai's voice was certain. "I can feel him through the Ember connection. Just a ghost of his emotions, but enough. He wants to see this through. He wants to understand how we beat him. He won't die until he has his answers." She was right. When the boarding teams reached Mivron's command center, they found him standing alone, his officers dead by their own hands, his weapons on the floor. He looked at the human soldiers with something almost like respect. "How did you do it?" he asked. "How did cattle become wolves?" Sergeant Bora Kim stepped forward. She had been chosen to lead this team because of her experience, her steady hand, her ability to see the enemy as something other than a monster. "We were never cattle," she said. "We just let you believe we were." They brought Mivra into the Soul's Dawn in chains. The galaxy watched as the great overlord was led through the corridors of a human ship, past crew members who looked at him with pity instead of hate. Admiral Tay met him in the conference room. They sat across from each other, two old soldiers who had fought the same war from opposite sides. "You expected execution," Tay said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes." Mivran's voice was tired. "In my place, I would have made an example. Broadcast the death across the galaxy. Shown everyone what happens to those who threaten us." "That's not who we are." "Then what do you want?" Tay leaned forward. "I want to understand something. You knew we were hiding our strength. Your intelligence officers must have suspected something. Why did you attack anyway?" Mivron was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the small room, because we couldn't believe it. Even with the evidence in front of us, we couldn't accept that a species as soft as humans could be a threat. You talked about peace. You built hospitals instead of warships. You sent doctors to our plague worlds and teachers to our colonies. We thought that meant you were weak. And now I understand. You weren't weak. You were strong enough to choose peace. We never had that kind of strength. We only knew how to conquer and destroy. You knew how to build and heal and wait." He shook his head. "We attacked you because we were afraid. Afraid that if we didn't destroy you first, you would eventually surpass us. And you have. You already have." Tay stood and walked to the viewport. Earth hung below them, blue and green and alive. "We're offering terms," he said. "Unconditional surrender. Your military will be dismantled. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your empire will pay reparations to every world you've conquered, not just ours, but your people will live. Your civilization will survive. We're not interested in revenge." "Why?" Mivran's voice cracked. "After everything we did, why show mercy?" Tay turned to face him. "Because we can. Because we choose to. That's what separates us from you." The surrender was signed 3 hours later. Across the galaxy, weapons fell silent. Ships stopped firing. Soldiers laid down their arms. In her laboratory, Dr. Unikong finally found the answer she had been searching for. A way to control the Ember connection. Not eliminate it, but dial it back. Make it something humans could use rather than something that would consume them. "It will take time," she told Admiral Tay. "Maybe years. But we can return people to themselves. The connection will still be there, available when we need it, but it won't overwhelm individual identity anymore." "What about the people who have already been changed?" The ones who are having trouble knowing where they end and others begin? We can help them too. It won't be easy, but they can find their way back. Private Nario was one of those people. In the weeks after the war ended, she struggled to rebuild her sense of self. There were days when she couldn't remember her own name, when she felt like a drop of water trying to separate itself from an ocean. But slowly, with help from doctors and counselors and the gentle support of billions of minds that cared about her, she began to heal. She learned to set boundaries, to strengthen the walls of her own identity, to be Nari again, even while remaining connected to something greater. How do you feel? Asked her therapist a month after the war's end. Nara thought about it. Like I'm me again. But also like I'm never alone. Like I have 8 billion family members I never knew I had. She smiled. It's strange, but it's not bad. Ambassador Lee Dae-ho addressed the reformed Galactic Council on the first day of the new era. The chamber was full, every species represented. Every eye fixed on the old human who had once been laughed out of this very room. We have won this war, he said, but we have not won it alone. Every human who fought, who sacrificed, who died, was part of something greater than themselves. And now we must decide what that something will become. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives who had once mocked him. We could use our power to conquer, to rule, to make every species in the galaxy bow before us. That is what you expected, isn't it? That is what you would have done in our place. He shook his head. But that is not who we are. We hid our strength because we feared what we might become if we used it. You forced our hand. And still, we chose mercy. Still, we chose to be human. He straightened, his old back finding new strength. Let that be our legacy, not our weapons, not our connection, not our victory. Let us be remembered as the species that could have ruled the galaxy and chose to lead it instead. Let us be remembered as the species that showed mercy when none was deserved. Captain Han Sumi, now promoted to Admiral, stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Sol's Dawn beside her. The retired Admiral Tae Woo-jin watched Earth turn slowly below them. What happens now? She asked. What happens if they threaten us again? Tae smiled. It was a real smile this time, touched with sadness but genuine. They won't. Not for a long time. Maybe not ever. How can you be sure? Because now they know the truth. He turned to look at her, and she saw the peace in his eyes. It's not our power they should fear. It's not our weapons, or our ships, or even our connection. It's our restraint. They pushed us to the edge of becoming something inhuman, and we chose to stay human. They saw what we could become, and they saw us choose not to become it. That will stay with them forever. Yes. Sumi nodded slowly. She could feel the ember connection humming softly in the back of her mind. Billions of minds, going about their daily lives, working and playing and loving and grieving. All connected. All human. It's a good legacy, she said. It's the only legacy worth having. Below them, Earth continued to turn. Blue oceans and green continents and white clouds, just as it had always been. The cradle of humanity. The home they had fought to protect. In hospitals across human space, wounded soldiers were healing. In schools, children were learning about the war and the choices that had ended it. In laboratories, scientists were working to understand the ember connection and keep it safe. And in the hearts of 8 billion humans, a new certainty was growing. They were not alone. They had never been alone. They were part of something vast and ancient and beautiful. A connection that had slept in their blood for millennia, waiting for the moment when they would need it most. They were human. And that, in the end, was enough. The galaxy had been certain of victory. The galaxy had learned the truth. And now the galaxy would have to live with what humanity had revealed about itself. Not monsters. Not conquerors. Not gods. Just humans. Doing what humans had always done. Surviving. Together. Forever.